Hello, and welcome to WraithLike Wisdom, True Scary Stories. Here is an interesting story. I hope you enjoy it. It's by Just a Clover. I saw Death herself one day. It was a beautiful sunny winter day. I was riding the tram, lost in my thoughts. I was looking out of the window. The blazing sun in my eyes gave me a feeling of warmth. After a while I looked around inside the vehicle. My gaze was stopped immediately, as it fixated on the girl in front of me. I don't know why, but somehow she caught my attention. She was looking out of the window, lost in thought and daydreams just like I had been before. I felt safe that I could just discreetly look at her without her noticing. There was something special about her, maybe something a little weird, but I couldn't figure out what it was. She was pretty, but also kind of mousy. She was young, maybe 20, and rather small. Her eyes were light green. She wore a big slouchy wool cap over her dark brown hair, and her body was wrapped in layers of dark green, brown, blue, and black winter clothes. There was a backpack sitting on her lap. She had on stockings. Her legs were... Oh shit, she saw me, looking. I immediately looked out the window as if something was fascinating going on out there. After a while, she checked if she was still looking at me. She was. Her eyes were fixed on me. Her expression was calm, warm even. She wouldn't let go, so I took all of my courage and looked her directly in the eyes. We held each other's gazes for a while. I was nervous at first, but her eyes made me relax away. We just looked at each other without saying a word, and somehow it felt natural. She started to smile. My heart skipped a beat, and I smiled back. "So how are you?" I asked. I would never spontaneously talk to a girl on public transport. I was much too shy, but she made me feel so relaxed and confident. "I'm fine, thank you, and how are you?" Her voice was beautiful and gentle. "I'm fine as well, thank you." I didn't know what to say after that. So we just looked at each other for a while. I was drowning in her eyes. Keep the conversation going before she gets out, I thought. "So, where are you going?" I asked, clumsily. "To a funeral," she answered. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I said, breaking a sweat. "Don't be. It's only a small one. I'll be okay." She smiled again. "Okay," I said. I had a feeling that I was really bad at this, and I slowly started getting nervous. Her smile, however, calmed me right down. She made me feel so safe, so warm, so... "What's in the backpack?" I asked. "My boyfriend's head," she said with a smile. I chuckled, like weird girls, but then I noticed something. There was a dark red fluid coming from the backpack, running down her legs, forming a little red pool on the floor. My brain kind of stood still for a second. Something about the situation just got very serious. I looked at her face and smiled awkwardly, looking for that gotcha expression, but it never came. She just smiled calmly. Was she serious? But it's impossible, right? "Why do you have his head in your backpack?" I asked. She said, "We didn't get along anymore. We had a really good time, but all good things have to come to an end someday." "I see. Did you kill him?" I was kind of running out of autopilot. She looked out of the window dreamily and started petting the backpack like a cat. "You know, life is like that sometimes. We met 2 years ago. He picked me up from a very bad state. He made me laugh, showed me the nice things in life. He taught me to be happy again. And then, one day I saw him in bed with..." She stopped with a lump in her throat, and she squeezed her backpack so that the red liquid oozed from it. Her eyes got wet. She caught herself again and continued, "But it's okay. I've lost him, but I still know how to be happy. That's what I learned, and I don't need him for that anymore." "Glad to hear that." She smiled at me. It was warming. "I'm going to bury him in a park under the tree where we had our first kiss. I'm sure he would have liked that," I replied. Somehow the whole situation was just pleasant. I liked talking to this girl. After a moment of silently smiling at each other, she said, "I have to get out soon. Say, would you like to grab a cup of coffee sometime?" Her question caught me off guard. I felt like a little boy, not knowing what I should and wanted to do. I smiled and blushed. Then I looked at her warm smile, her beautiful green eyes. I opened my mouth to say yes, but suddenly some strange, forgotten instinct kicked in, and instead I asked, "Did you love him?" She didn't reply. Her gaze became sad and serious, and her smile turned into a bitter frown. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She looked at me with an unfathomable sadness, and I looked back at her with all the compassion I could offer. She wiped her face dry with her sleeve, got up, and got out. I never saw her again. To this day I tell myself that she made a joke, or that she was just being weird. I could have gone on a date with her, of course. She didn't kill her boyfriend. But I'm completely honest with myself, I know. I saw death that day, and she was beautiful. A few days later, these strange men knocked on my door and asked me questions about a girl that I may have seen or chatted to. I decided to say I had not. Something caught my eye. They had a symbol on their right chest that looks like a circle with 3 arrows pointing out from the sides. Don't Wake Up by Jessica Jane. Part 2 coming soon. Last 3 jobs and my friends and family and have started calling me crazy. It is way more than my imagination. I'm not crazy. I am 100% sure that it was real. It really started when I was worrying about final exams. I also wanted to live closer to my best friend. So I had to move with someone temporarily. Luckily, there was a woman who said she was visiting someone for 2 days. That was enough for me. When I went to meet her, she looked weird and had a lot of missing teeth, but could still talk fine, and she looked about in her 20s. She looked and smelled like she hadn't showered in months, and she looked really skinny. I thought nothing of it. I didn't even get the chance to ask for her name, as for some reason she didn't tell me on the phone, as she sounded like she was in a rush. The whole house looked really new and pristine, but when I went to have a shower, it didn't turn on. I thought this was why she smelled so weird, but then I thought, this house looks similar to a mansion, so she would definitely have the money to call for a plumber to fix it. I tried not to think of it. When I walked into the room I was sleeping in, it was so dirty I walked straight out. Then I realized how off this house was. Way too quiet. Not a bird chirping, not the trees blowing in the wind. Soon enough I had to get into the dirty bed, since the sofa and chairs were very uncomfortable. The bed was so weird. I thought it was strange, but I just fell asleep. Anyway, I woke up at 2:58 a.m., decided to get a glass of water, and went back to bed about 3 a.m. The second I lay down on my bed, I saw something shift under the blanket. I decided to turn on my side, but what I saw made me nearly have a heart attack. Part 2. It immediately jumped on me and said, "Why did you wake up?" Then I closed my eyes and put the cover over my head. Just felt it get back underneath my blanket. I called my boyfriend and told him what happened, and he just said, "It is all in your head. I've just woke up now. Please go back to sleep." Then he hung up. The next night I woke up, and I needed the toilets really badly, so I went and as quick as I can. To my surprise, the scary thing didn't come out, and so I decided to call him in the morning to tell him he was right. When the lady came, I was trying to call my boyfriend. The lady said as I was going out the door, "Who are you trying to call?" I thought it was a bit weird, but thought she was just concerned, and told her, "My boyfriend," but she's not picking up. I think he may be sleeping, since I woke him up at like 3:10 a.m. to tell him about A nightmare I had last night." She mumbled a word and then said, "Told you not to wake up." I don't remember anything else from that day. Story number 3 by Deleted. True story. What happened in late July. Every year I visit my grandparents' house in the summer. This was about 2 summers ago. I was around 11 at the time. But I still remember everything that happened. I was there for about a week. I was taking a trip alone. I had flown out. But on the 3rd day, some scary stuff started happening. Whenever I went to breakfast with my granddad, there was this guy in a black hoodie that always sat behind us. He never ordered, and everyone at the restaurant got a bad vibe from him, they said. Also that week, my gram and I got an unmarked package. We threw it away as fast as we could. On Friday night, my Uncle Michael and Aunt Kate were supposed to come over for dinner. My grandma and I were making yogurt cookies in the kitchen and listening to music on Share AirPods. Some background. My grandparents live in a big house in the middle of the woods. However, it is very close to the main highway. Their driveway is on a steep hill. Also, at least once a year, we get a huge summer rainstorm. Michigan isn't known for that, but trust me on this. Anyway, we were making cookies for dessert during one of these rainstorms, and the power went out. Usually power outages don't faze me, but for some reason this one was way too dark. My Uncle Michael and Aunt Kate said they still should come because of the roads were flooding, and they live on a low plain. They also said there was a guy in a hood on their driveway. When they got there, they banged on the door, so I let them in. Usually they tell me how I've gotten really tall or how pretty I've gotten, but they just brushed me aside and went to my grandparents. Being the kid I was, I decided to eavesdrop, and they said that there was a man in a hoodie on our driveway, and he had a gun. Let's get this straight. I am not like other girls. Most girls would have ran, especially at that age, but not me. I had to see this. But I wish I had been like other girls at this moment. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. There was a guy in a hood with a gun, and the hood covered his eyes, and he smiled at me. I ran back unnoticed. They wanted to call the police, but there was no power, and they couldn't turn their phones on for some reason. Some more background. In my grandma and granddad's room, there is walk-in closet. On the ceiling there is a trap door that unfolds into a ladder. This leads to an attic inside their roof. I was the only one light enough to fit, so I went up there with my iPad and my AirPod. I don't know where they hid, but they must have done a good job of it, or he would have found them. I stayed up there for hours. It was freezing inside that roof, and played games and listened to music. But at a break in the storm, I heard the glass windows by the front door shatter. I clicked off my iPad and hid it in an old box. I laid flat on my stomach behind a trunk and closed my eyes. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I stayed totally still and quiet. Someone who is not my family opened the trap door. Keep in mind we are inside a roof, so it was pitch black. I shut my eyes again. I think it poked its head around for a while, but it couldn't find me, so it went back down. Hours later, power came back on, and they called the police, who got me down. Grandma gave me a blanket and got hot cider while they talked to the police. When they talked to me, I told them about the shattered glass, but they said that was impossible because there was no sign of a break-in. I told them he had come up and looked for me, and that he had a gun. They told me I must have imagined it, but my family said they saw it too. But a deputy cut in and said she had seen a person in a black hood run away into the woods. The police posted outside the house that night, just to be safe anyway, though. Nothing like this has happened since, but a year later, the same day in July, the power went out, and we heard foot coming from the attic. We still don't know exactly what happened, but I'm just glad I stayed in there. I am just praying it never comes back.